Hey everyone, and welcome to another Spodcast. I haven't gave up on this yet. It's amazing. We're 4 episodes in and I haven't got bored. Hopefully I won't get bored, otherwise this is going to be the shortest podcast in history. Just a bit of housekeeping. As some of you may be aware, we have a video one and we also have audio. I had a problem with the podcast hosting service, so I binned them and cancelled it, and I've got a new podcast hosting service, which means we now are on iTunes, Podbean, Amazon, Spotify, TuneIn, and Google if you like listening to audio. Or if you prefer video, you're watching on YouTube. So, hi, you can see my face right now. But it isn't just my face you have to look at. I have some guests, and I always like to get varying opinions, so that way I'm not always right, even though I am. So, first up, I want to welcome one of my fellow UKers, someone I know from Comic-Cons and a good friend. It is Nat. Hey Nat, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How's it going?
Not too bad. It's good to have you on, get your opinion. I'm just admiring the Witcher outfit in the background. You know, it's all fancy stuff. Just to be clear, the Captain America isn't her outfit, but I'm sure you'd pull it off.
I mean, I'm a little bit short, but I might have tried it on a couple of times.
Well, what you do in your own bedroom, that is totally up to you. And also from the States, someone, well, we've just been working out, I've known for 15 years online, never met in person because there's this big wet pond thing in the middle, but someone who's a fellow geek and works on many websites and posting articles on TV and movies as well. We have Matt. Hey, Matt.
Hey now, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's going to be fun, I think.
Yeah, I was just desperate and I thought, well, who would want to come on? Who would... But no, it's good to have you on because it's very rare we actually talk face-to-face in a sense. It's always online and messages, but it'll be good to get some audio opinions as well.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
So I'm just going to jump straight into it. About an hour or so before recording, we had the Justice League trailer be revealed, ready for its March 18th release. And I got the date right, I had to remind myself earlier, but yeah, March 18th, it is coming out. There's been no international date or time of release mentioned yet, but yeah, the trailer was very, very interesting. I'm going to jump straight with you now. What did you think of the Justice League trailer?
So, I mean, I've been a DC fan for quite a long time, but in terms of being really into DC, it's only been like quite recent, like on reading the comics and things like that, and I'm really excited about this. I mean, my other half, who's been on this podcast, is absolutely over the moon as well, but I think first things first, it's really exciting to see the Joker, so the new version of the Leto Joker. I really want to know if it's going to be like a version of the Joker he has already played in Suicide Squad, whether it's like before or after, or if it's something totally different and it's like a weird sort of multi-dimensional thing. I think it's going to be really interesting. But to be introduced to that in the trailer already is really exciting.
It is. That was the bit that just got me, is kind of like what they're going to do with this Joker. Is it another universe Joker? Is it just a dream that Batman's having? Or is it a future that the Flash has sent back? Because obviously we have the Whedon version that kind of hinted at what was happening with the Flash, but we don't particularly know. Matt, what did you pick up from that? What do you think is this nightmare version?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a dream version or a vision version. He doesn't have any of the tattoos, and not that it can't be before the tattoo thing, but his makeup's different and everything too. I just think I don't know how much he's actually in it. I think Leto only filmed 1 or 2 scenes, if I'm not mistaken. So it could just be a quick sort of vision thing just to get things moving along. That's what I took it anyway, and it looked like the way he looks that he filmed it while he was filming The Little Things, because he looks the same in that. And I don't know if you've seen The Little Things, but he is very Joker-esque in The Little Things also. And I actually, it was kind of cool to see, like, oh, that's a version that he could play. It was different than the Suicide Squad version, but it was a cool thing, like if he played it that way. And now he looks the same with it. But yeah, I think it's just a nightmare vision sort of thing, not Marvel's Vision. I don't want to get confused, but just a Vision sort of thing that Bruce has, because he's had a couple of them in the different movies and stuff that we've seen, and Snyder kind of likes that trend, it seems. But I did like the trailer. I'm not an enormous Snyder fan, but I think this was the best trailer of the Snyder Cut that I've seen. I didn't really like the aspect ratio of it, but I think that's just, and this is way nerdy stuff, but I think that's just because he like gets an IMAX aspect ratio, which doesn't look great when you're watching it like on a phone or a computer or something like that. So I don't know if that's the actual format that's going to be presented in HBO Max or if it's going to be something different, but the actual content of the trailer itself, I actually quite enjoyed.
Yeah, see, I like what you say about the Joker version, because I wasn't a fan of Leto's The Joker and Suicide Squad. I already preferred this version of Joker in the 20 seconds we've seen, because I don't know if it's fair to say this, but I got more of a kind of Ledger vibe from it, which I loved Ledger as the Joker, but I got more of a kind of a mix between the two, and I think that was the version of Joker we needed. There's already people demanding that we get the longer cut of Suicide Squad, the original version, before they tried to make it all fun, but that's a discussion for another time. But overall, from the trailer, were there any aspects that stood out for you, Nat? Was anything that made you go, ooh, that looks kind of cool?
Well, just a lot of it. I mean, there's all sorts of things, not just from this trailer, just that have been released over the course of how long has it been? 2 years?
Something like that,
2
yeah.
years? Yeah. That have just got more and more exciting. Obviously, the build-up is part of this. But I think, obviously, the extended runtime, I'm actually quite looking forward to. I know that quite a lot of people are a little bit like, oh my god, 4 hours, we have to sit and watch this for like 4 hours. But if you think about it, Lord of the Rings, I know Lord of the Rings The Two Towers, the extended edition, was nearly 4 hours long. And I love a really, really good cinematic extended movie, because you can really, really get into it. So I'm really excited about it. There was nothing in particular that has stood out from this trailer apart from the Joker. It's just another thing to build up how excited I am to see the extended edition.
I think depending on the film, like you say, Lord of the Rings was 4 hours. Once you're kind of immersed in that world, you kind of forget the total length of the film. For me, Batman vs Superman, that dragged for me when I was in the cinema. I went to a midnight screening and my friend fell asleep while watching it. You know him, Scott, Nat, but he fell asleep while we were watching the film, and that kind of says a lot. So hopefully Justice League won't have that impact. What about you, Matt? Is there anything that stood out to you that went, ooh, actually, this could be something different?
Well, two things that stood out, and I don't know if it's what you're looking for, but when the Joker said that we live in a society, it brought me right back to George Costanza saying it in Seinfeld in the Chinese restaurant. I don't know if we're supposed to, make connections between George Costanza on Seinfeld and the Joker, but that's what we did. And then, of course, I like seeing Black Suit Superman, and it was nice seeing all of Henry Cavill's real face instead of the CGI'd mustache.
I'm going to miss the CGI mustache. I like the way his lip kind of randomly quivered.
They should have just let him have a mustache. I mean, Superman with a mustache. I don't think that's a big deal. But other than that, it did kind of follow the broad strokes of the theatrical cut, in the sense that Batman wants to put together a team, and he's recruiting people, and it's dark side, and even though we're gonna get actual dark side instead of just get him teased, but I think this might be better executed, and 4 hours is definitely enough time to do what he wants to do, I guess. I just hope that it's not like putting stuff in there just for the sake of putting it in, because no one will ever see any of this sort of stuff again. I hope it actually all contributes to the story, because then in that case the 4 hours will go well. I mean, look at, not to be the guy that compares Marvel to DC, but look at Endgame. Endgame's 3 hours and 2 minutes and does not feel like that at all. And I've watched some 2 hour movies that feel like they were all day. There was so much happening in Endgame that you had to have almost every scene so I'm hoping that's the same thing here with the 4 hour cut of the Snyder Justice League, that everything they show us is relevant to the story, and it's not just filler or deleted scenes or something like that.
Yeah, I've always looked at Endgame. Endgame always felt like it was 3 stories within it. You've kind of got the start with them living in the blip and getting prepared to time travel. Then you've got the time travel. Then you've got the final battle. So that felt like a nice sectioned film. And you've brought up my major concern with Justice League is how is the story going to pan out? Is it just going to be filler where Snyder's just went, ooh, that's really cool from that comic, that's really cool from that, ooh, fans love that, and just kind of trying to push it all in? Like, for example, he's got little kind of cameos, like Granny Goodness is in the background behind Darkseid.
Yeah.
Is that just she's there? And that's it. How much has he gave away in the trailer?
He definitely had a set vision and a script originally back in 2016, 2017. So he definitely had a story he wanted to tell. I don't think if the Whedon thing never happened and he got the version in theaters that he was originally doing, if he didn't have that tragedy and all that stuff, it wouldn't have been 4 hours. So I'm curious, the difference between his original vision or his original script of Justice League to now this big 4-hour cut we're getting. Like, what? Yeah, did he put in, like, I can flesh out the story more because I don't have to meet these studio like time limits? Or is it, hey, we filmed all this stuff, it was going to be on the cutting room floor, but we might as well put it in, there's no reason not to?
Yeah, because the content, the storytelling of it is so important. The way that they cut it is going to have a huge impact, and it's either, I'm worried that it's just going to be too much. Now, I know, Nat, you mentioned Lord of the Rings. Are you a fan of the extended cuts? I love the extended cuts. I'm sure my DVD box set, Blu-ray box set's literally just behind me there. I love the extended cuts. They just felt right. It was additional on top. But do you think it could be too much content?
I think, like Matt was sort of saying, I think there will be a massive difference between him just now having free reign and just going, right, like, I'll just pull in this, and this because, I don't know, I can, versus this is going to fill out the story. This is going to extend on this particular bit, or this bit's going to tie in later. That's going to be the main difference. And I think he did have a vision, obviously, which is why everyone called for this to be made and released in the first place. So I don't know. I don't know about too much. I mean, I'm a Marvel fan, but I thought there was too much in Endgame. Like, so, like, I think Endgame could have been 2 movies. I think they tried to cram too much into that. So I don't know is the answer that I can give you. I think we can only really find that out once it's out, which is in 4 weeks time?
About 4 weeks time, yeah.
4 weeks time. Yeah.
What about you, Matt? Do you think it's going to be a hit or a miss?
I mean, I think regardless, if it's a miss, the studio will be like, told you so. That's why we got Whedon and we did this theatrical cut. And if it's a hit, they're like, well, let's see, that's why we put the original out there, because we knew it was going to be and we messed up before. So either way, the studio is going to make themselves look good on it. But I think just because of how fan-driven this was, for better or for worse, if you have, if there's issues you have with it, that's another story. But for how much call there was for this, I don't think they'll let it fail. Even if it's objectively worse than the theatrical cut, which I don't think it will be. But if it happens to be, no one will admit it, and it'll be the hardcore Snyder fan base, and he has some very dedicated, loyal fans.
Oh God, yes.
Will tout this movie forever and have this cut, and I think that they will, just be. It's going to be celebrated regardless of the actual quality of the story.
Yeah, I think personally Warner Brothers and HBO are aiming for this to be a success, just so then they can go, right, you know what, let's bring out a new version of Suicide Squad, the air version, before they did all of these changes, and get some more money out of us, because that, at the end of the day, is what they want to do. They want to be promoting HBO Max, their new cable streaming service, And that's what it's about for them. Obviously, in the UK, they sell the distribution rights to Sky and Amazon and things like that. But it's down to making money, and this is going to be a huge selling point for people to get HBO Max. And they say that a Suicide Squad version could be coming out in a year's time. I think could be the route that they are going to take. I personally thought the trailer of Suicide Squad was better than actually Suicide Squad. But yeah, who knows what's going to happen with that.
I think a lot of people did, and that was the problem. So they gave the movie to the company that did the trailer to cut a version of the movie that was more like the trailer. I would definitely be interested in an Ayer cut of the Suicide Squad. The only problem I see with that is James Gunn's Suicide Squad is coming soon, and I don't think I think they'd want some distance from that and not promote like, hey, this new version of the old movie on HBO Max, but then here's the new movie that's still going to be on HBO Max, because Warner Brothers is putting all of their theatrical films in theaters and on HBO Max at the same time. So I think they'd want some distance. So if it did happen, I think it would be 2-3 years down the road, maybe. It wouldn't be a recent thing to do it, because I think that the Ayer cut is way more complete and stuff than Snyder's. Like, I think he had a version ready to go and they just recut it, where Snyder had to leave prematurely and didn't film some things or didn't have exactly what he wanted, so he had to finish it up. This, I think it'd be easy to just maybe I think they might have to do a few special effects just to polish some stuff off and release it, but I think the James Gunn version will kind of hinder that for immediate time being. I think maybe in the future, when there's some distance from it, that it could possibly happen.
Well, I'm personally looking forward to the 20-minute scene where Lois suggests Clark Kent gets the mustache, but that's just my personal preference. So that's enough on Justice League. Now I want to talk about a film that I don't really want to talk about, but it has been announced. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is coming out in April 2022. Now, some people may know I am a huge Sonic fan. As you can probably see if you're watching the video, I have some Sonic the Hedgehogs right there. And even my email is CJSonic. Well, it used to be. I changed it yesterday. But I love Sonic the Hedgehog. When I heard that the movie was being announced, I hated that idea, but I gave the trailer a chance. Then we saw that trailer with that Sonic model, and that was horrible. Then they re-released it. Sonic looked better, so I gave the film a chance, and I wasn't a huge fan of the film, but it was obvious, with it being one of the highest grossing films of 2020, for no other reason, had nothing to do with COVID and lockdown, honestly. Yeah, sure. They're announcing a second one. So Matt, what are your thoughts? I'll jump at you in the start for this topic. What are your thoughts on Sonic 2 being announced?
So I actually really enjoyed the first Sonic movie.
Thank you for joining us, Matt. It was nice having you on the podcast.
So, especially Jim Carrey's performance. I think he went full Jim Carrey, and it's such a treat when he gets to do that. I mean, I didn't think it's the best movie in the world, but I did enjoy it. Maybe my expectations were low, and I enjoyed it that way. But I felt the same way you did about Venom, and like that was one of the highest grossing films of the year that came out, and I didn't understand that at all because I really wasn't a fan of the Tom Hardy Venom movie. But this one, I enjoyed. In the sequel, it seems like they're teasing more Sonic characters, and they're going to open up that world a little bit more. And who knows where it can go, if it's going to be more sort of video game-esque or more sort of real world incorporated again. It remains to be seen. But there's a lot of video game adaptations that don't work, and this one had a lot that did work in it, regardless of what you thought of some other things. But as long as Jim Carrey gets to go full ham again, I'm in.
Yeah, I love how everyone just says Jim Carrey went full Jim Carrey. It's like, that second Jim Carrey is just slightly different to Jim Carrey. There's just Jim Carrey, and then there's Jim Carrey. And it's the Jim Carrey that we know from the past and we love. The Mask Jim Carrey, the Ace Ventura Jim Carrey, which we've been lacking. He's been trying to do a lot more serious stuff. But he went full Jim Carrey. What about you, Nat? What were your thoughts on the first film, if you've seen it, and the announcement of the second?
Yeah. I mean, I was a little bit surprised that they were bothering with a second. But I didn't not enjoy the first movie. It's not my favorite thing. I probably wouldn't watch it again. But it was light-hearted, kind of on in the background, sort of. I mean, as was being said, Jim Carrey is the redeeming feature. He was incredible. It was such a great performance, and it was great to see him go full Jim Carrey, like you say. And it has been a long time since I've seen him doing that kind of acting. So it was great. It was great to see that, and I mean, it'll be interesting to see because obviously they're teasing Tails. I think they teased them at the end of the.
It's Easter egg at the end of the first film, and the logo has the two little tails now.
Yeah, so obviously Tails potentially is portaled into the real world, and then what's happening on the other side of that? Who else might be involved? Yeah, it's going to be, I don't know, interesting. It might be a total flop and a complete waste of time, and some sequels, a lot of sequels, often are. But if people enjoyed it, and I mean, kids might have enjoyed it. I don't really know. Yeah, so I was surprised, but it'll be interesting to see where they go with it, I think.
Well, I can honestly say that Sonic the Hedgehog was the second best film I saw last year, because I only saw 2 films last year in the cinema, so that explains why it was second best. But for me, the bit that annoyed me the most about the Sonic the Hedgehog wasn't the design, it wasn't the Jim Carrey, it's just the story didn't make sense. It's all about going fast, so he travels in a car. It just didn't work in the fact that it's Sonic the Hedgehog. He has to do quick things, and I know budgetary wise it's hard to do those sort of effects, but if you're making a Sonic the Hedgehog movie from the game, you need to have more scenes where he's being fast and he's saving people. The animations, like the cartoons, that worked because it was Sonic being Sonic. But the live action, I think, focused too much on the human characters than it did actually on Sonic the Hedgehog being Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, the question I will ask is, would you actually like to see it more in the real world in the second one, or would you actually like to see some more kind of worlds that look like the levels? Matt, I'll go to you first in this one.
Well, first of all, the car thing, I think, did some entertaining moments because he kept leaving the car and running away and then coming back to the car as like it was driving, and I thought that was kind of a clever way to look at things. Barry Allen doesn't run everywhere. He does take, transportation sometimes. But I understand your point. But my wishes for the sequel, I think. I don't care as long as whatever fits the story best. I don't want them to force one or force the other. Like, okay, we gave you a lot of real world in this one. We had to give you a lot of like video game world or that Mushroom Kingdom in this one. If this whatever the story calls for, if it's a mix between the two or if it's heavily predominantly one or the other, I'm fine with as long as whatever tells the best story.
What about you, Nat? What would you like to see in the second film?
I think it'll be, I mean, with the tease of Tails being portaled into the real world, it's likely to be mainly in the real world. But if it became kind of Space Jammy or like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and they end up going into like more an animated kind of world, it could be a good laugh. I think something like that could be fun, like a nice little mix of the two. But yeah, who knows?
As long as they don't go too over the top and start doing every movie they introduce a new character. So Sonic 3 is where they introduce Knuckles, just like in the game. Sonic 4, they'll have Knuckles and Sonic again, and just
Well,
go on.
I think there's a good chance we see Knuckles in 2. Actually, I think
I've heard that.
And there's rumors of even who would voice Knuckles, and I don't know if we want to get into potential spoiler
Go for it, because in
the
the day it's just theories at the minute right now.
Yeah, it's not confirmed, but they're circling Jason Momoa, who plays Aquaman, as the voice of Knuckles. So it sounds like Knuckles and Tails will be in. I wouldn't be surprised if at the end, like Shadow was the tease for a villain for part 3 or something like that at the end. But it looks like Knuckles and Tails. We know Tails will be, but it looks like Knuckles will be part of part 2 also.
Well, the this is where my Sonic knowledge kind of comes into play. But in Sonic and Knuckles, the first level is a land which has giant mushrooms in it. And in that, Knuckles is the bad guy. I think personally they could be hinting that Robotnik meets Knuckles and says that some sort of bad thing, Sonic's the bad guy, so Robotnik and Knuckles team up against Sonic and Tails in Sonic 2, and then Knuckles ends up helping them save the day, and then, who knows, maybe you could have Shadow, where it's like it's in space and he's kind of coming down or something like that, the ultimate life form. But I think it's hinted at Knuckles and Robotnik.
I would like to buy a ticket to your version of that movie, sir. That sounds great.
Yeah.
I'll let them know. I'll just say, look,
yeah,
this is what I think. This is what you should do. But I love the idea of Jason Momoa is Knuckles and Jim Carrey just going full Jim Carrey. That's what we need.
Right.
Knuckles,
just full Jim Carrey in the Mushroom Land. It'd be great. just a movie of that. I would literally.
We got a little
watch.
taste of that at the end, but if they just wanted to make that the whole thing, then I'm in for that too.
Yeah, so hopefully my version will come out, but probably won't. So who knows what Sonic 2 has planned for us. Now, talking about games to movies, we actually have some major announcements for games to TV, and the HBO version of The Last of Us has just cast its two main leads. Pedro Pascal from The Mandalorian and Wonder Woman, and from Game of Thrones, little kick-ass, Bella Ramsey, who was just stole every scene she was in Game of Thrones, I've got to add, have been announced as Joel and Ellie for The Last of Us. Now, Nat, I know you haven't played the games, but I know a few people listening might not have, but basically The Last of Us is set in the world where a virus has infected and people have kind of transformed into what are called clickers. They're kind of like zombies, but obviously games can't just use zombies all the time. And I don't want to say the next bit because it might. No, I'm going to say it. The game's been out for years. It's out there. That
spoilers.
Ellie has something within her that could be a potential cure to the disease. At that, the game's been out for decades, so I think I can say that. But there's a potential cure inside of Ellie that could save the world. So, Nat, you haven't played the games, what do you feel about the idea of a Last of Us TV show?
I mean, yeah, I haven't played the games. I've seen a lot of cosplays that have been brilliant. I've seen a lot of like playthroughs on like YouTube and that kind of thing. So I get the basic gist. But I mean, I know, using this as an example, I know The Witcher started as books, but most people knew it from games before it became the TV show, and they are quite different. And I think that's going to be a really cool thing. I think it'll be really good to see that. Obviously, with it being a particular story in the game, I can imagine they won't really flesh it out a huge deal taking it to TV, but I do think it'll be a really good way to sort of get people involved in the whole franchise. It looks like a really great game. I just never got around to playing it. So yeah, I mean the announcements are fantastic. Pedro Pascal is phenomenal. He's a fantastic actor. And obviously, like, little Bella Ramsey is just brilliant as well. So I am looking forward to it, even though I don't have anything to base that excitement off, which is sometimes kind of fun anyway.
And obviously the game is known as one of the best ever PlayStation, if not console games that have ever been made. And there's a lot of concerns about the casting of the characters, and obviously with so many fans of the game. Matt, do you think they've made the right choice with these casting announcements?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who would think of Pedro Pascal as a dad-like figure who has to protect something that has something special in them. That's just like way out of the range of anything he's ever done.
I hope he can pull it off. He doesn't have the experience of that at all.
No, I don't know where they got that idea.
But this
from.
is the way it is.
But
yeah.
Two Game of Thrones alumni are reuniting, and Pedro Pascal's in one of the biggest shows. Well, he was in that Game of Thrones was one of the biggest shows ever, and then he went to another show that's one of the biggest shows ever in The Mandalorian. That man can do no wrong right now, and I think The Last of Us is a huge property that they want to get right, and to put that on his shoulders, I think, is a genius idea, and he'll do it well. And so is the actress who plays Bella Ramsey. She was incredible in Game of Thrones. She's probably only going to get better, and she'll do great as Ellie also. And she's going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting as well. So between the two, that show's in good hands, I think.
Now, there's a lot at the minute of announcements of games and ties into TV and animation. We've got a Tomb Raider animated series coming out, another Sonic animated series coming out. We've got Assassin's Creed. We've just had The Witcher. There's a lot of games moving into the TV environment. Do you think that we may be getting too much and it might take away from the games, or do you think it depends on the game, Nat? What do you think? Could this work?
I think in sort of the generalized kind of idea of it, I think providing it's not sort of like for like, and they're doing a different story, or they're showing something from the background, or they're showing something that's slightly different to the exact gameplay, I think is a really good way to do it. Because I mean, you might not want to sit down and read like 7 novels to understand the backstory, but if you play the game and you watch The Witcher, you watch the next series, you might be able to understand sort of the basics of the stories and the lore behind it. So I think it's a really good way to also get people involved in a particular franchise who aren't necessarily big gamers. They might be more into sort of sitting down and watching Netflix, which we're all doing at the moment because no one can do anything. So, you know, it's a good way to bring other people in and to spread the franchise as a business to other possible fan. I can't think of the word. I've just gone totally brain dead. That'll do.
Yeah. What about you, Matt? Do you think there's too much of this game to TV kind of transfer, or do you think it does just depend on the story of the game?
Yeah, I think it just depends. And IP, intellectual property, is king right now. Everybody wants an established thing, whether it came from a book, whether it's a remake of an old series, whether it's a thing. And video games are a medium that has a lot of IP that hasn't really been touched yet in a storytelling medium outside of that. And right now we're in the golden age of television, where they're spending as much on TV shows as they are on movies. Some of the best stories are going to television now instead of films. They're luring actors who were only ever on the big screen to the small screen to do TV, with the exception of Tom Cruise, who still won't break that and go to the small screen.
The only thing he breaks is bones, but yeah.
Yeah, well, to entertain us, and it I thank him for it. But I think that just there's so many. Like, I would love to see a Time Splitters series. I don't know if you remember that video game. It was on PlayStation 2 back in the day. That is the perfect format. Sort of like a more action-packed Quantum Leap type show. It'd be perfect. I don't know why we're not on the 5th, 6th season of that show somewhere already. So there's a lot that you can do. And I think people are slowly learning, because there's been a lot of video game adaptations in the past that just haven't worked. Like that Doom movie with The Rock. I mean, everybody loves The Rock. He's one of the most charismatic people ever, and that movie still made like $4 because that just didn't work. So I definitely think that getting those video games into formats for people to see these stories and experience them, for people who don't play video games, can absolutely work.
Yep, sorry, the cat was getting his opinion in there as well. Don't know if you heard that. But yeah, I think one thing I am starting to realise is games, you spend 30, 40 hours on computer games. You really get to know these characters. And when games have been made into movies, it's 2 hours maximum, or maybe a bit, but you get the idea. It's 2 hours. Mm-hmm. You don't get to know these characters, and people have played the games don't feel as if the characters are being given the justice. But when games are moving to TV, we are getting 20 hours a season, 10, 15 hours. We're getting that time knowing that we're going to get more hours in the future and potential seasons, and they seem to work better. I don't know if that's just me, if you agree or disagree, but I think TV shows kind of give you that depth, whereas the movies just don't cover what you need to know.
They're long form, like a video game is, and it's the same problem with books. You books can get very much in detail, and then you try and tell that one story in 2 hours, and it just sometimes it doesn't translate well. Where on a TV show, if they can do a book in a season, where it's 15 episodes or something like that, some people still aren't happy with it, but I think it works better on that long form medium than a film, which is, like you said, 2 to 3 hours max, and that's it.
What about you, Nat? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm in total agreement, and I think as well, like, I think it depends if it's specific, like particularly about like games being moved into TV shows. There are a lot of games now that are doing the storytelling in themselves, so I think you have to be a little bit careful about that. So like you probably couldn't take like Assassin's Creed Odyssey or something like that. Something that's already got a really, really inbuilt story, and it's obviously a huge map and that kind of thing. It would be a little bit more difficult to take something like that into a show, but not impossible, because like you say, you spend like hours and hours and hours playing these games and getting into these characters. So you need to find a way to translate that into a screen medium, and I think shows are probably the best way to do it, unless you know that you are going to do a really long run series of movies, which is unlikely. Then yeah, a TV series is the best way to go, and the budgets are there and the services are there. There's so many streaming services now, so it definitely seems like the better way to get your story across.
And I think I've played definitely The Last of Us, and it's a story that could be made into TV easily. It has that realism. It's nothing too out there that it would be too CGI heavy. Obviously, they're going to use some sort of CGI and prosthetics for the clickers. I want to call them clickers. I'm sure they're called clickers. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, people. But I don't think it'll be out of the world of realism, whereas the likes of Sonic the Hedgehog and things like that just wouldn't work as a live-action TV show. But it'd be really interesting to see what happens and whatever characters they are going to bring in, and are they going to have it... I always thought The Last of Us might be quite interesting in a Lost format, where you have flashbacks to pre-virus, the virus, and maybe, because of The Last of Us 2, show bits of the future as well. But that'd be really interesting to see what they do with that. And I want to move on because I'm aware of the time. The next thing I want to talk about is, and HBO's been very busy actually. HBO have announced that they are going to do a more adult version aimed at an older audience than originally of Scooby-Doo's Velma's, which is going to be voiced by Mindy Kaling, who is probably most well known from The Office. Matt, what do you think of the idea of a more adult audience orientated Velma animation?
I mean, I think it could work. They did that with Archie Comics on the CW with a show called Riverdale, and while I personally don't watch that, it's been very successful and people are doing it. And even with Sabrina the Teenage Witch on Netflix, it's a little darker and a little heavier than the 90s version that we were used to. It's interesting that they're focusing on her specifically and not like jumping around to all of them, and I'm sure they'll appear in the other people will appear in some form. But I think people are just weary because the last sort of spin-off type thing we had when you're not focusing on Scooby-Doo was Scrappy-Doo, and he didn't go over that well with people. So I think people are just kind of a little skeptical. But listen, with the right people behind it, it could absolutely work. Mindy Kaling's an amazing writer. She's an amazing talent, and if she's doing it and she has this idea, I definitely am at least curious to see what she has to bring to that character that we haven't seen before. A new take on it could be entertaining, and if you don't like it, you can shut it off. It doesn't wreck the Scooby-Doo that you liked in the past. Like, you can still stay with that one. But I think it's maybe an interesting angle to take that property where as opposed to just, well, let's pull a mask off an old man and see, because we've seen that for 30, 40, 50 years now.
Yeah, and it doesn't get old for some reason. But yeah, you're right about spin-offs, and you had Scooby-Doo and the 13 Ghosts, where it was Scooby-Doo and Shaggy and another little crew. You also had more recently a Scooby-Doo and Shaggy one, where it was they inherited their uncle's mansion, and they had robots, and they can tell I've got a young kid. And it just didn't seem to work. What about you, Nat? Do you like the idea of having a Velma spin-off animation, or do you think it's just going to fall flat?
No, I do. I think, as Matt says, I like Mindy Kaling. I think she's great. She's got quite good like sort of comic timing, and I think she's got a great voice for it as well. I think it's going to sound really, really good. And I quite enjoy sort of like the adult cartoons as such. I loved Archer when it was out. It was just it was brilliant. And I think because I believe it's like one of a few different one of a few different kind of adult cartoons that they're sort of bringing out.
For some reason, my mic muted. I was about to say, I think it's more aimed at a not adult as an Archer adult. I think it's just more kind of not young kids, as in the Riverdale sort of audience for Velma.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless of whether it's like adult or adult, I think it's a really good way to sort of bring in a bit of nostalgia, like sort of Sabrina got brought out and that kind of thing. But I think it's going to be really interesting. I'm quite excited for it. I didn't know this was even in the works, so I think Velma's a really interesting character to have picked as well. I think her story is going to be quite exciting, actually.
Yeah. As we established earlier, I think it's adult. It's not full adult, like with the Jim Carrey thing. But listen, it's Scooby-Doo has met like Batman and like the Harlem Globetrotters, and like they've done some pretty like out there things. Other than if you just get over it's a talking, anthropomorphized dog. So a Velma show could absolutely work. And I don't know, if it's just going to be a little bit more sort of serious, or because I don't think they're going like a full like Rick and Morty sort of adult.
No, I've just
thing,
thought
even
I'd
though it
look
is
it up,
HBO.
and it says that it is going to be an adult animated comedy series telling the origin story of Velma Dinkley.
So it'll be
Okay.
interesting to see if it is more sort of like Archer or the Harley Quinn series or
Yeah.
that kind of like vibe.
And if it's an origin, that means it's pre,
Mystery Machine and everyone like that.
Yeah. So it'll be curious how they build it, like how soon they'll build up to that. Where like, is that just gonna transform into like an adult Scooby-Doo full machine type thing, or is it just gonna be they'll just kind of keep it before, or maybe they can jump in time and do post after she's grown up? Or I mean, I think depending on how long the show runs, there's a lot of things they could do with that.
I'd like it to do little in-jokes of what will happen in the future. Like, you guaranteed someone's going to make a joke of what we're expecting the dog to do, talk. You can just see
Right.
that joke is going to play so many times. But it'd be interesting to see it being a comedy-based, more adult-themed show on Velma. And obviously, again, it's one of those time will tell. I'm going to give it a chance. I love the fact you've mentioned the Harley Quinn animated series. That is on my list to watch, and I haven't got round to it, and I feel really bad about that, but I've heard good things about it. But it'd be interesting to see if she's going to be solving crimes or how she learns her skills. And yeah, who knows about the future of Velma? And the reason why I mentioned solving crimes, because that's my little segue into the next bit, is a TV show which I love, and I know Nat and Matt haven't watched it, but Brooklyn Nine-Nine has announced that the 8th season will be its final one. So, Nat, I'm going to come to you and just say, what is it about Brooklyn Nine-Nine that hasn't really appealed to you?
I don't know. I think it's one of those things that I just never got into it. I think when it first kind of came out, I wasn't really binge watching a lot of series and that kind of thing, so I wasn't bothered about it. And then it was too many series in and I couldn't be asked, basically. But I don't know. I've seen some clips of it. I don't particularly find it that funny. I'm sorry to everyone watching this who loves Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'm sure it's really good. If I gave it the chance, I would probably enjoy it. There are too many other things that I want to watch first. So I've just kind of not bothered. But then, I know obviously this is the last series, and I think it's, from what I've heard, I think it's a really good idea to go out knowing that it's the last series. So you're going to have a good tie-up. I think it was similar with Lucifer. Like, you know that it's ending, so it's going to be... Hopefully you're going to get a load of loose ends tied up, and you're going to feel a lot better about the series as a whole. So that's pretty much all I can say on it, because I don't watch it. So.
Yeah, Matt, you have it on your list of shows you're going to be potentially watching soon.
Yeah, absolutely. It has nothing to do with I didn't like it. Just kind of fell through the cracks when it first showed, and then I had a list of other things I was watching, and life got in the way, and just be busy and that kind of thing. It looks right up my alley. Like I'm a sitcom junkie, and more so past sitcoms than current ones. But there's a few current ones that stick out, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine is one of them. I just haven't gotten around to it, and you know it's one of those that you could tell it has a huge fan base, because it used to be on Fox in the States, and then
got cancelled.
NBC
Same time as Lucifer, and then
I mean, I don't want to give you Chuck flashbacks or anything, but
don't mention Chuck.
but you know, it got rescued by NBC, and I think it was a better fit on NBC. And you know, Andy Samberg is an amazing talent, and you know, if you've ever liked any of the Lonely Island stuff, he's in one of my favorite movies of last year called Palm Springs on Hulu. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. Don't watch a preview and don't read the synopsis. It's better if you go in cold, but just press play, because it is a wild ride and it's great, and it's all Andy Samberg. So I'm definitely sort of a cheering from the sidelines fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like, I'm glad for its success and happy for its fans, and I will one day sit down and just go all the way through it.
Yeah, see, I'm not usually a fan of cop shows or anything that sort of style, so I was surprised that I actually really enjoyed Brooklyn Nine-Nine, because I think the one thing that makes it fit is the diverse characters, and that's what makes a good sitcom. You know, some sitcoms, the characters are very similar. This one has a very diverse cast, and you'd never expect it to work, but it just does. And you don't know how, you just don't know how they function as people. They're great detectives, but how they function as people, it's just impossible. And it's not kind of over-the-top crimes or anything like that. It works well, and it is something... It does take a while to get into it, but once you kind of get into those characters and the story, you just it hooks you in. You just want to watch it. So I thoroughly recommend people checking it out. In the UK, I know season 7 is finally coming to Netflix in March, and season 8 has just started filming, hence the announcement, and obviously that will be coming out probably closer to Easter time, I'd expect, in the US. Now, I want to move on from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, because I don't think I can get any more out of Nat and Matt on a show that they've never watched, but a show that they have watched. God, these segues get better. Shut up, dog. Now, it is WandaVision. Talking about dogs, the dog's dead in WandaVision. There you go, spoilers. But yeah, WandaVision this week. It's just getting crazier and crazier. The theories are going out there. You just don't know how to even begin talking about it, but I'm going to make Matt begin talking about it to make it easier for me. So how have you been finding WandaVision?
We could have just done the entire hour on just WandaVision, and maybe just give me an hour.
You've got
by
2
myself,
minutes.
and
Go.
then you an hour, and then yeah. So,
Kidding.
listen, I think it's one of my favorite things Marvel's ever done. I was sort of angry at the week thing instead of the binge model at first because I'm a spoiled child, but it works way better this way because now we're taking everything very slowly instead of taking the whole chunk by storm. I'm just impatient and just want more is the only reason, because it absolutely works in a week. But I think this is going to be one of the most important things for the MCU as far as I'm pretty sure there's some things being introduced that are going to have ramifications for the future, including maybe a certain character that has a famous family when it comes to Marvel. I think could possibly show up. And if this is setting up Wanda to be the villain in Doctor Strange 2, because she's confirmed to be in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, that's just gonna. I mean, I'll get in line right now for whatever movie theater opens up with Doctor Strange. I love it. The sort of cliffhanger thing that ended with Darcy being put in and her expanding this just shows her true power, and we have no idea what's happening next. And I'm glad that the next 3 episodes, there's only 3 episodes left, and I'm glad that they're all an hour length, so we're gonna get more each week as we go forward now. But I love it. I can't wait for Fridays for a plethora of reasons, but for mostly I can't wait till Fridays to just watch WandaVision, the new episode of WandaVision.
Now, you're saying they're going to be an hour long, but you do realise that'll be 20 minutes of credits. I love how the 40 minutes, but at least 8 minutes are the credits. So it is an hour long, but it's going to be a 10-minute episode, then 50 minutes of credits right at the end there.
Yeah, well, The Mandalorian did something similar, but the credits were so sort of beautiful to watch with the artwork and stuff on The Mandalorian that I didn't really mind it, and they're sort of doing the same thing. But with each episode being movie quality, you need a movie-length credits on the end of each one. So I understand it. But, it's Marvel, so always watch it, because you never know what could be at the end of one of the credits one day.
What about you, Nat? What have you been enjoying or hating about WandaVision? I don't know. Do you love WandaVision? How have you been finding it?
I have been enjoying it. I really have. I've got to admit, I haven't enjoyed the last couple of episodes as much as I did when it first came out. There's been a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, spoilers. They suck. I'm not that bothered about spoilers, but I think it's just because the episodes are so short. Once even watching a trailer, you've watched half of the episode already. And I really enjoyed right at the beginning. I loved that kind of Black Mirror-y kind of not really sure what was going to happen, and there's loads of little things tied in that you couldn't really see until you watched it 3 times. And there's a little bit. I feel like there's a little bit less of that now, because obviously it's leading up to major events at the end, which I do understand. Obviously, the episode. Are we allowed to talk about the episode?
Yeah, we can. It's been 2 days.
Yeah. Okay. So there were a few little things in there which I thought were really interesting. I love the fact that her kids are maybe potentially getting powers of some description, whether they are different powers, whether they're manifestations of her and her brother. That would be really interesting to see where that kind of goes. I loved how when Vision went off to do his own thing, and right at the edges and the fringes of her power, everyone was just stuck, but you knew that they were still there, and you could totally see the torment, and it was really, really interesting.
That tear running down, yeah.
Yeah. And when he saw Agnes in the car, who'd obviously just got stuck and didn't know what was going on, that was really interesting. So yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot going on. So I do agree with the sort of week by week model, because you really need a little bit of time to dissect what's happened before you see the next one. But yeah, it's been really interesting, and I am looking forward. I'm looking forward to the next 3, definitely.
Yeah, for me, I'll happily admit that I think this episode was the weakest of the 6. Now, that isn't necessarily saying that the episode was bad. I've got to point that out. I just think it was the weakest in terms of story and visuals compared to some of the previous. But there is a few talking points that I've picked up from the episode. One of them is obviously Pietro, or Peter, or what you want to call him, Pietro. I can never say his name right. Don't know why. But is that actually her brother? Why is he looking like Quicksilver? Is it to do with dimension stuff where he's Pietro in a different dimension and the person that set up this world has dragged him across thinking that would be the same as the brother? Is it because Wanda doesn't want to view her actual brother and seeing him dead? Who knows? And the other thing that I was thinking about today is Vision. And as you said, how he gets Agnes and he touches them and you see like yellow lightning and then it kind of controls and brings them back. If the Mind Stone has been destroyed, how is he controlling people's minds? Because Wanda doesn't have that power, but he's using his powers as if he has the Mind Stone. Is the Mind Stone actually back? Has she pulled it from another dimension? Matt, what are some of your theories in regards to Pietro and Vision's Mind Stone powers?
So for the Vision thing in Infinity War, they kind of hinted at, could we, if we took the Mind Stone away, what would be left? And Bruce, I think it was Bruce Banner, said maybe the best parts, because it's part of Jarvis and it's part Ultron and it's part of all this stuff that maybe if Shuri had more time and could actually remove it via the technical method she was doing, you could still have a powerful Vision without that stone. And maybe they're leaning on that sort of the rest of it, but this is all within her power, and they even said that the tracking on Vision was decaying vibranium. So it's going away. So who knows what entity is actually in Vision. As far as Pietro goes, I believe Wanda when she said she didn't make that doorbell ring. And
definitely.
So it could be another force, whether people are saying Mephisto or Nightmare or somebody bringing it in, and he was very much interrogating her in that town square. So I think that someone sent a familiar face in to get information, but just got the face wrong. And I don't think that this is the exact X-Men version that was in Days of Future Past and all the other ones that aren't worth watching after that.
Agreed.
I think it's just a sort of that part sort of an Easter egg to us, because I do think, obviously mutants and the X-Men are coming to the MCU eventually, but I think there's just an Easter egg on our part. But it was more just the recast, because that plays into the sitcom tropes. Like with Becky and Roseanne, like they recast the sibling sort of thing all the time. But I do think that it was just sort of it's supposed to be off, and it's not like a recast like how Don Cheadle or Mark Ruffalo were, where it's not in universe. Like, it's always been the same in universe. Like, that's why Darcy said that she recast him. Like, it's supposed to be something off, but I think that maybe Wanda is so focused on other things, or is just so comforted by having a version of her brother there that she's not asking questions or something like that. And so I think we'll get more information with that sort of version of Quicksilver or Pietro or whatever you want to call him soon, and maybe even Monica's friend, the aerospace engineer she's going to meet, who could again be the person I hinted at earlier, who has a famous family in the Marvel comics, that maybe could provide some answers to that as well.
Do you think we'll get that in the next episode? Do you think we'll get more answers? Now I'm coming to you, Nat. Don't worry, I haven't forgot. But do you think we might get that reveal, or do you think? I think we can. I'm going to say it because it's theory, it's not guaranteed. But obviously, we're hinting at possibly Reed Richards being the engineer. And Elizabeth Olsen said the other day that there is going to be a Luke Skywalker type of cameo. Yes. That is going to be revealed. Now, a lot of people thought that was going to be Quicksilver that they mentioned, but I think you could be on the ball here, and this has been, a lot of people are speculating this. The only thing I can think of being a Luke Skywalker type of cameo could be Reed Richards appearing in WandaVision.
Absolutely, because he said Luke Skywalker, not Mark Hamill, right? So she said the character name, and there's people who've watched Mandalorian who may have not have watched Star Wars before, and so maybe didn't know the character. Which I don't know how you don't know Luke Skywalker, but there are people who did not know who Luke Skywalker was, and so there will be people who don't know who Reed Richards is if he shows up, but like people who do are gonna freak, and who knows who's actually gonna play them. But if you bring Marvel's first family in this way, is going to be great. I think I would be shocked if Doctor Strange doesn't show up too, but I don't think that's the big surprise cameo that they're teasing.
I think they've even said Doctor Strange will appear in it, probably in the final episode, and that will tie into the film. I think they've quite happily said he will appear right at the very end.
Yeah, because it's supposed to lead right into the sequel, Multiverse of Madness. So, I'm hyping myself up for Reed Richards, where if it's not, I'm actually going to be disappointed, so I shouldn't do that. That's my fault. Shame on me. But I do think that that's most likely who... I keep on calling her Geraldine because that's what Wanda calls her. Monica is going to meet with Jimmy in the car.
See, my totally out there theory is because Disney owns Fox properties now, and there's a circus, it's Krusty the Clown. I'm just throwing that out there, you just never know. But Nat, what are some of your theories and thoughts on where WandaVision is going?
I'm trying not to make too many theories, because like if I'm right, then I'm going to be like, well, I'm excited that I was right, but at the same time, I want to be surprised. So I'm trying not to go down that route. But I am super excited about Monica's like character development, because obviously we've just seen that she's got like weird blood and DNA and all sorts of stuff going on. Now, obviously, if you know much about the comics, then that's quite an exciting kind of like introduction.
Most definitely.
So it'll be really interesting to see if that happens in the next few episodes. So I mean, because she's a really cool character in the comics, so that will be fascinating to see where that goes. But then, yeah, I don't know. I try not to get too excited about theories and stuff, because I just like watching things happen.
Real quick, though, do you guys think that the M word is going to be said in WandaVision? Because legally they could not say the word mutant while Fox had X-Men, but now that Disney owns those Fox properties, that word be uttered in this series? Because I was waiting for Darcy to say like your blood's been mutated when she was showing Monica, and Monica's great. I hope we see a lot more of her in the future, and I know we will. So that's wonderful. But yeah, I keep waiting for that word to be dropped, and it hasn't.
Maybe yet. Wanda in this link to the multiverse, and you've got Mephisto and things like that. Who's to say that this bubble does, when it blows up or how it disappears, causes like a ripple? And that's what causes the mutations, because Monica now, and we can say it's in the comics, it becomes Photon. Obviously, that she has different names as it goes on, one of them being Captain Marvel and stuff, but Photon is the one that they're kind of hinting at. Who's to say that WandaVision isn't the cause of the mutation? Something happens and a rift opens, and you know what it's like. There's ways of explaining it, but that could cause the mutations. And I think they'll talk about a mutation first, as in like she's now has a mutation, and that will lead into the idea of mutants in the future, which could lead into the Fantastic Four. Because if Reed Richards appears, who's to say that he won't be there and it's something from Wanda? Who knows? There could be many different directions that Marvel could go with this. But unfortunately, that is something we'll have to talk about in future podcasts, because our time is up, unfortunately. Sad. So sad. But we'll get yous back, because I think a lot of people, I'm thinking of doing a WandaVision special, so I might get a few people on, quite a lot of people on, just to talk about what they thought. But I'm looking forward to every Friday now and avoiding Twitter and then reading all the theories on Twitter. It's amazing hearing people's thoughts, and I think personally, now we'll talk about this very, very quickly, but I love how there's so many different theories and everyone has different ones. Do you think having these series has helped the show, or it's spoiling the show? Matt, I'll come to you first on that one.
I don't think it's spoiled. I think it creates hype and excitement, and it's definitely something you can only get in that week at a time format. If it was a binge watch, we had all 9 episodes. The discussion would have died down a lot faster. We would have talked about it maybe a week afterwards, and that'd have been it. We've moved on to the next thing. So so their format, they're actually inviting that, and I think it's helping the show because of it.
And I know, Nat, you were saying you don't like having your own theories, but are you enjoying the week by week discussions and the wait?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, that I've got nothing against people having theories and getting excited for the show, because as Matt says, it does bring the excitement for the next episode and knowing whether or not you're right and that kind of thing. It's just I personally try not to make them, but I love hearing people's discussions, and I love like looking at Twitter and Instagram and all sorts of things, and seeing what people are theorizing and getting excited about and what they hope's going to happen. So yeah, it's definitely a good thing.
So to finish off, if people want to discuss with you further, saying we're talking about social media, Matt, if people want to find you, where can they find you online?
On Twitter at MattV525.
And I'll put that on, so in case people want to get the thing, I'll put it on screen. And finally, Nat, if people want to find you, want to discuss more about WandaVision and anything else, where can we find you?
I am on Instagram, Kemble's Creations.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, you two. Really appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you for listening. It's a pleasure, as always, to be discussing these things for you. And obviously, hopefully you're listening or watching. Don't forget, you can find more news and information on SpoilerTV.com. Also, check out the Performer of the Month. It's a thing we do every month. There is a video on the YouTube announcing our 2 winners. I'm not going to tell you right now. You're going to have to go watch it and find out. But thank you very much. You can subscribe on YouTube, or there's 6 different audio versions. I'm rambling now, so I'm going to shut up. I was CJ. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching our video, guys. Really hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget you can subscribe to Spoiler TV just using the little Spoiler TV button, or check out some of the latest articles and recommended videos from our channel as well. Thanks for supporting us, and we'll see you again soon.